Hungarian bean soup, Bableves. I use pinto beans. I've washed them already. I'm using them dry, and I use only half a package of this. Screenshot this recipe. I left the white carrot out of the recipe because I don't have any on me. They're also called turnips. I already got started by covering my ham hock with 3 liters of water approximately, 2 bay leaves, lots of pepper. Garlic is a personal preference thing, so some people like 2 cloves. I like 6. A safe amount to start with could be 4. A lot of people soak their beans the night before, but I didn't have time this time, so what I did was put them in there dry. It's going to take longer to cook, but it will still get done within today. Let this baby cook. You can use this in an Instapot or on the stovetop. Stovetop and Instapot and pressure cooker are the fastest ways to do this. But I'm using the crock pot, and everything, the heat setting is on high. As you cook, just time to time stir it, check on it. If you need to add more water, you can do that, but you don't need to add much more water if you're using a slow cooker. By this time, the food's been cooking for about 12 hours. The beans are falling apart, so is the ham hock. I'm going to take it out and I'm going to separate the meat off of the bone and the fat. So we aren't going to leave that in the soup. The way that you know that this is ready to be taken out is when it's falling apart when you lift it with your spoon. And it's time to get the carrots added. I'm using baby carrots because I didn't have regular sized carrots, and that's fine. Slice them lengthwise in 4. Then I separate the meat off the bone and the fat, and I toss the bone and fat in the garbage. Unfortunately, I only got a little bit of meat off of this, but it was still enough to make the soup delicious and flavorful. Add it to the soup and let it cook while the carrots are getting nice and soft. When the carrots are soft, it's time to get started on the thickener. This is an approximate amount of the ratios of the thickener. Flour, oil, paprika. That's all you need right there. Got my 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm just going to add the flour when the oil gets hot. I'm using a whisk because whisks are my best friend. Also keeps things from clumping up. I'm going to cook this here until it's like a light brown. Not too dark, not too light. I use paprika from Hungary, but just make sure that wherever you get your paprika from, it's nice and red. So there's my Hungarian paprika right there. I put it in my American containers. Now, the thing about the paprika, you don't want to cook it for too long. You want it in this pan long enough to toast it, and then you're going to put it right into the soup. But if you let that paprika cook for more than a minute, it's going to start getting bitter. So a couple seconds is more than enough time on the heat and you're going to add it when the thickener is a nice light brown. It's looking better and better. Okay, now it's time to add the paprika. Watch how quickly I use this. This is really seconds matter once you add the paprika. See? Perfectly. It's going to make a nice orange batter, and then you can stir it into the soup by adding the liquid into the pan. I use a smaller pan than the one I'm cooking in so that I can do this dipping. I find that it helps keep clots from building up in the flour. I'm going to cook this for a few more minutes, let it get nice and thick. In the meantime, I'm going to get started on the chipetka, also known as pinchable noodles, or little pinches. That's what it means. 1 cup of flour was way too much. I would start with a half cup, because you'll see why. When you use too much flour, the flour and egg ratio is very important. So start with the egg, add the salt, approximately enough to make a tiny little, half teaspoon. And then, see, I put in the full cup and that was way too much. Start with the half. Otherwise you don't have to waste another egg like I did. In these times, eggs are precious. Yep, too crumbly, not good. Need another egg. It's getting better. You want this to be thick, like thicker than bread dough. Trying to think what else I can compare this texture to. Basically thick and hard like typical noodle dough if you make your own noodles. You want it hard enough that you can just pinch little bits off. You could add flour as you go. Just keep adding and, pulling, pinching, feeling it out, see if it's good enough. It's alright if you have flour that didn't completely absorb, because it's going to fall off into the stew or the bean soup and it's going to make it thicker. This is the same thing that we do for goulash. Yeah, we're just going to pinch this into the soup. Pinch at a time. They don't have to be neat little balls. You want them to look like torn off little bits of whatever, because then it gives them these fun little shapes when it's all cooked. There's flour dropping into the soup, which is fine. I just stir it. Pinch, 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 pinch. There's flour on the bottom of the bowl, and occasionally if it gets sticky, I just put it down in there to catch all the flour. Sometimes you need to add more flour to this little glob of dough to keep it from sticking to your fingers, because that's just not fun. It takes a lot of time to pinch this off. In fact, chipetka is the most time-consuming portion of making this soup. I let it cook for about 13 to 15 minutes, and here it is, the finished product. A nice, thick, food. It's definitely a comfort food for lots of Hungarian families. The recipe is actually the same almost anywhere in Hungary. Serve it with sour cream and crushed red peppers if you want to add more spice to it. I use a red pepper cream. It's basically smashed red peppers. It's called Strong Steve.